Today we are privileged to have with us Christopher Bissetta, a certified financial expert who specializes in helping families navigate the often complicated world of financial aid. Chris has helped countless students maximize their financial aid, ensuring that they can focus on their education without overwhelming burden of student debt. Love that idea. Today, he's here to share his knowledge, provide some success stories, and offer practical tips on making the most out of the FAFSA. Let's dig right in. Good morning, Chris Bissonnette.
Good morning.
So, is there deadlines coming up, or what do we need to? Does everybody need to file a FAFSA, or should just the people who think they're eligible?
Everybody should file a FAFSA, even if you make $10 million a year.
Okay, so I'm not there yet. Thank goodness I don't even have anybody needing to go to school. So if you make 10, even if you make 10 million, so why would I file that if I'm making that much money? I'm of the assumption, okay, I'm not going to get anything from the feds. Why should I file? Why should I go through the effort?
Well, good question. And there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. Because when you file a FAFSA, you qualify for need-based grants, so income-based, asset-based grants. Some schools require it for a merit scholarship like LMU, so money based on your grades or maybe an instrument you play sports. You also qualify for work study, working on campus, being paid for that, as well as federal subsidized student loans, so getting a low interest loan that you don't have to start paying back until you graduate. So it covers those four areas. And a lot of people think it's just loans. You can earn up to $400,000 of adjusted gross income and still receive need-based aid at some schools.
$400,000 and still get need-based aid.
The example I show people with my software is someone making $300,000 in California with $500,000 of liquid assets, and they qualify for a ton of need-based aid.
Now, you have to have your assets in the right spots, though, don't you, Chris?
Well, ideally, you just don't want to show a lot of liquid assets. The way that schools look at it is what assets, what could be sold to pay for college. So you could have $100 million in your 401k or IRA, or even a $10 million home residence, and that's not going to be counted on the FAFSA. They're looking at liquid money, your liquid brokerage accounts, checking, savings, things like that.
So I saw someone that posed a question on one of the groups on Facebook yesterday, and it said, should I invest in real estate or in a 529? And I know you don't give financial advice, but just from let me rephrase that. You don't give financial advice here. If somebody wants financial advice, they can call and hire you for that. But our 529 plan, which of those two, the 529 or real estate, which is better for me? Not from an investment standpoint, but from a financial aid standpoint.
The financial aid standpoint, if you're trying to qualify for the most need-based aid possible, in that situation, a home residence doesn't count on the FAFSA. If you had a rental property, that's going to count against you as an investment. Same as 529s. 529s count against you as an investment, so they do count against you.
Now, do they look at, when you're looking at a non-owner occupied property, are they looking at the net value of the property, or are they just looking at the gross value of the property?
Net value.
Okay,
value minus what you owe.
Value minus what you owe. So if you've got that fully encumbered, it's not going to have much effect at all.
Yeah, if you have a huge loan on, there's not a lot of net equity, then no, it's not going to count against you much. It's whatever that net equity is. It counts against you around 5% on the 5.84% on the FAFSA.
We're not going to hold you to the decimal point, Chris.
Well, that's what it is. I am the FAFSA pro, so
you are the FAFSA pro, so you understand that stuff.
But I tell people around 6% of anything that's liquid is going to count against you on the FAFSA formula.
But wait a second. So when we talk about real estate, that's generally not too liquid.
Correct, but again, if you have a rental property and you've got $300,000 of net equity, you're going to lose about $18,000 in possible need-based aid, because they do view that as a liquid investment.
Okay, so go get the home equity line of credit on that rental property and max that out as soon as you can, before you're filling out those forms. And
Yes, that would be a strategy. There are very, as you know, having me on through the years, there are strategies you can do to qualify for more aid. It is a bit sophisticated. However, some people get hundreds of thousands of dollars in need-based grants by doing these strategies.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars. When we come back, I want to talk to you about hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's amazing that they're getting that much. Does anybody really need hundreds of thousands? Are any schools in that kind of price range now? We'll talk about that with Chris Bissonnette when we come back. Continuing our conversation today, Chris Bissonnette is the FAFSA Pro. So, Chris, what are some of the common mistakes that you're seeing people make, and how do they avoid them?
Probably the biggest one I've seen is on the FAFSA. It says, what's the worth of your investments? And people just put their 401k in there. They put their home equity in there. Literally just the way they answer that one question, costing them potentially $100,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now I can understand, there's so many ways. How do you value your real estate? That's there can be 16 different ways of probably, I'm just exaggerating.
I think the easiest way to do it, Ron, because most people, what they do is they say, oh, it's worth $1 million, and then we owe, 300,000, so it's 700,000. And I'm like, all right, well, if you go to a school that uses the CSS profile, they will count, they can count your residential real estate. So ideally, you don't want that number to be very high. And really the only thing we have to really value it is your property tax. So I tell people to use your tax assessed value minus what you owe. And that's usually a much lower number. Now the profile will say, don't use the tax assessed value, use the current value. But I've never ever seen a school come back and challenge, the home equity, how you priced it.
Yeah, because so many, leading a lending team and doing so much with real estate, I've never seen somebody who valued their home legitimately. I mean, it's always pie in the sky because they're thinking, okay, what can I get for it, or what can I borrow for? And if it's a home, then the comps in the area are all say $1 million. Well, they're basically saying, oh, I think my house is worth $1.1 million. And that would really shoot them in the foot when you're talking about FAFSA filings, wouldn't it?
Yeah, more on the CSS profile if we're talking the residential real estate. But if they've got other properties, I tell them use tax assessed value. You've got your property tax bill minus what you owe. I think that's your best bet to use.
Bet you come up with a lot of times that's a negative number, don't you?
Negative or it's just much lower than, let me go to Zillow and then, see what it's worth minus what I owe.
And ironically enough, I've got reports that on Zillow's website, and I don't know if it's still there, but we copied it so that we would have it. They say they can be off by as much as 30%. So
sure, exactly. And especially now with this, especially some parts of Orange County that have had a really high appreciation over the last 4 years. So that's one of the big mistakes. You don't put your 401k and your IRAs on the FAFSA, which people do all the time because the questions are vague. What are your investments? Like, it's kind of ridiculous the way they word it almost. Like, so people make a lot of mistakes on it. I always advise people, hey, if you've got, it's an $80,000 tax bill, you're going to hire a CPA to do your taxes. I suggest people at least consult someone the first time they do the FAFSA because there's just so much money potentially on the line.
Okay, so go ahead and harass me, Chris. I'm ready for it right now. My alma mater. Although I went to Chapman College, it was much cheaper then. Chapman University. Yes. Where's our prices now?
Good question. By the way, I know, just before we jump into Chapman, the LA Chargers, so you were kind of, mentioning, their first, again, when they were in LA for 1 year before they moved to San Diego. Their training camp was Chapman College, by the way. So a little trivia
really?
nugget there for you. 1 year, I know, of all things, they write Chapman College. Chapman College, a private school here in Orange, Southern California, highly acclaimed. I think right now it's $95,000 per year is the cost of attendance. So that's tuition, room and board, books.
Wait, did you really say $95,000?
Yes, I did.
Wow. Ow! That's for 4 years, right?
That's per year.
Per year. So okay, so when are we going to get one that's over 100,000?
We have it.
We have.
I have some software that I use to run numbers, and about 2 weeks ago, one popped over $100,000. And here in Southern California, Pepperdine University, cost of attendance for 25-26 is over $100,000.
Over $100,000. And that's for a school. And I know it's a great school. And I know I have some friends that go there. I couldn't imagine going into Pepperdine and getting anything done. That campus is just so gorgeous, so magnificent. The view of the ocean and Malibu. I mean, I'd be mesmerized all day just wanting to sit out there. I went to a graduation there several years back, and graduation out there on the lawn.
Me too. I've been to one of those.
Right? I mean, isn't that amazing?
I stayed in those dorms once for something, but yes, it's a beautiful campus, prestigious, But again, most people wouldn't think like that school is going to be 100,000. So you're going to see a lot of schools around the country this year, next year, start to get over 100,000. It's more of the Ivy League type schools.
Now you're the FAFSA pro. I just do a little radio here and there. I know how to bring those prices down in a heartbeat. Nobody wants to listen. Josh and I have talked about it here on Ron Siegel Radio many, many times. So you bring the government is what helped us get these prices where they are. And it started out with George W. Bush, 43. So he made the student loans non-dischargeable in bankruptcy. So there's no reason for the schools not to charge a lot of money because there's no consequences when people don't pay. So if they go and they reverse that and give them consequences if they don't get paid, I bet they become a little bit more prudent with that money on some of the tuition. Now, Pepperdine, those of us that are listening here in Southern California that we're appreciative. We know that there's a lot going on. We get fires here. I bet their fire insurance at Pepperdine has gone through the roof over there with the way we've had fires here in Southern California.
Yeah, I could imagine.
Crazy stuff. Okay, so let's see. What other financial aid opportunities should students and families be aware of? How can they best position themselves to take advantage of some of these options?
Well, number one, they need to file the FAFSA. So 1/3 of U.S. families attending college in the United States do not file a FAFSA. I believe this past year it was 38% of families did not file the FAFSA. Why? We don't understand it. We don't think we'll qualify. I think my daughter filled it out. I don't know. We missed it. It's like completing your taxes. Nobody wants to do it. And I understand that. It's very complex. There's stressful for families. So that's number one is you've got to submit the FAFSA. And two, as I advise people, you should talk to someone who knows how the FAFSA works the first time. Just because the upside is too great. I mean, I have a client this year going to Johns Hopkins University, which is $86,000 per year. The client received $86,000 in scholarships and grants, free money, 100% covered.
That's amazing. And something. And when we come back, I want to talk to you a little bit more about your program and how it can help people, because that might be the biggest issue right there. Is not only I think most people don't know how to fill out the form, but my guess is most of them don't know how to get a hold of Chris Bissonnette. So we're going to talk about that when we come back. Continuing our conversation with the FAFSA Pro. That would be Chris Bissonnette. He is a regular contributor on Ron Siegel Radio, helping us understand what's going on financing of college. And, I'm not a big fan of college is not for everyone, my opinion. There are people that benefit from college tremendously. I agree. There are people that benefit from not going to college. We need electricians and plumbers and truck drivers and scores of other services that may not need that to go into the expense of what college has to offer. But if you are thinking of going to college, if you want your child to go to college, if that's the right path for them, why not do it the smart way? I mean, we're paying so much in taxes. Why wouldn't you want to take advantage of what's available out there? And quite honestly, so many of these schools, Chris will talk about this more than me, they have massive endowments. Chris, isn't there some schools that they could go for decades without ever charging anybody, and their endowments would just cover their total cost?
Possibly. I mean, these endowments are incredibly large. I think USC, for example, is 11 billion, and I think Harvard's 53 billion, which is more than half the countries on Earth have. Just one school in the United States.
That's amazing. So, one of the things I always like is you always have some new and recent story. What's today's story for that maybe someone on the average, maybe not necessarily going to John Hopkins. You already told us, 80 some thousand, but some of us that aren't quite as bright as that. Do you have any stories about that we can help?
Well, I do have success stories. The other thing I did want to bring up too, Ron, that's very important that most families do not do is each year the school distributes a financial aid award letter that's going to be found in the student portal. And a lot of times it's hard to find, which is incredible. People cannot even locate it, but it's in there. And most families never review it. Well, you can pull that up and see, okay, school's going to be $75,000. We're getting this little scholarship. We're getting this. Here's our student loans. Here's what we're supposed to contribute as a family. You can go back to the school and you can ask them to reconsider the aid that they've offered, sometimes called an appeal, or I call it financial reconsideration. I've gone from client getting zero in grants to $51,000 for 1 year by doing an appeal, sometimes more than one. So just very important for families to know that, like a house, you can negotiate the price, which I was surprised about 6 years ago, but I've probably done like 30 to 40 appeals, and 70% of the time they generate more aid. But I'll give you one success story. Big client of mine, they didn't have a very high income, but they had liquid assets, more than $1 million in kind of checking savings. And I ended up moving that money prior to filing the FAFSA. And the client received $8,000 in grants from USC and a federal Pell Grant. We went back and appealed, and they changed it to, it was like 46,000 or something. And then this year, the client got 68,000 in grants and grants at USC. So I think that student, because they kind of followed this strategy, will receive maybe $150,000 in free money over the 4-year period.
So grants is money that you do not have to pay back, right?
Grants and scholarships is the free money that you don't pay back. The tricky one is the grants. People always hear scholarship. Oh, you get a scholarship. Some schools give zero money for scholarship. So you might get in on a scholarship, but they don't give you any money. Where you really get money is need-based grants, showing the school you qualify financially for the school to give you $50,000 a year, for example.
That's a pretty massive amount of money. Those are life-changing numbers when you think about having to go in either in debt or coming out of pocket with $50,000 versus getting a grant for $50,000. That's massive.
Yeah, the common way is do loans, right? Do community college. We have no plan. We're so stressed financially anyways here in the United States. Everything's so expensive. So the plan is go to community college, then we're going to do student loans after. Well, the smart way to do it is, no, we're going to ask the school to pay for part of it through their endowment. But it's kind of complicated.
Do you find more success when you go through the transfer process after you've gone to to community college for a couple of years,
No.
or just going
Yeah.
4 years at the main school?
You're better if you qualify financially. You're always better off going to the school because a lot of aid they give is in the first 2 years.
Okay, sounds great. I mean, that's we always love to have that aid. If you want more information on this, give me a call at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. Chris Bissonnette is the FAFSA Pro. He'll help you get the aid that your student deserves. He might even be able to show you how to maximize that, get a little bit more.